For the last year, I have stood here and told you that Florida is falling apart. I've shown you the foreclosure maps, the empty subdivisions outside Cape Coral, the streets in Lehigh Acres where every third lawn had a for sale sign in it. I've used words like collapse and meltdown and freefall, and I meant them when I said them. So I want to do something today that a channel like this one is not supposed to do. I went back through my own numbers, every claim and every chart, and checked them against the newest data the state has released this summer. And some of it is still true. Some of it is worse than I told you. But one part of the story has quietly flipped, and it flipped hard enough that if you are sitting there right now with a house in Florida or with a plan to move here, you need to hear it before you make a decision you cannot undo. Because the crash everybody keeps talking about is real in one specific corner of this state. And in 10 towns I'm going to name for you, the numbers have gone the other way completely. Let me start with the part I got right, because you deserve that first. The migration story is true. Back in 2022, Florida gained 310,000 people in net domestic migration. 310,000 Americans packing trucks in New Jersey and Ohio and Illinois and driving south. By 2023, that number had fallen to about 183,000. And in the newest Census Bureau figures for 2025, Florida's net domestic migration was 22,517. That is not a slowdown. That is the moving truck pulling over on the side of Interstate 75 and switching off the engine. Florida used to fight Texas for the #1 spot in the country for people moving in. In 2025, Florida ranked 8th. And Miami is worse than I ever told you. In that same year, Miami-Dade County recorded the largest domestic population loss of anywhere in the state. Nearly 73,000 more people left Miami-Dade for other counties and other states than moved into it. 73,000. That is a small city walking out the door of one county in 12 months. Then there is the condo market, and this is the piece I want you to hold on to because it explains almost everything that comes later. Across Florida, this June, condominium and townhouse inventory sat at 8.1 months of supply. In the real estate business, anything over 6 months means the buyers are in charge and the sellers are in trouble. 8.1 months is a market with its hands up. Those are the towers on the coast, the older buildings facing the new structural inspection rules, and the special assessments that come with them. The units that retirees bought in 2021 at the top and now cannot move. So when somebody tells you Florida real estate is collapsing, they are not lying to you. They are describing a very real thing. They're just describing a coastal condo tower and calling it a state. Because here is the number that made me go back and check everything else. That same month, June of 2026, the median sale price for a single-family home in Florida was $432,000. And that figure was up 4.9% from a year earlier. Up, not down. The single-family house, the thing most of you actually live in, got more expensive over the last 12 months, while every headline in the country was telling you Florida was in freefall. It gets harder to argue with. Existing single-family home sales in Florida that same month came in at 26,036 properties, up 9.3% from the year before. And June was the 10th month in a row that Florida sales grew year over year. 10 straight months. That is not people fleeing a sinking ship. That is a market that has been climbing since last summer while the internet insisted it was DIing. And the single-family inventory number tells you why. 4.5 months of supply. Compare that to the 8.1 months sitting in the condo towers. Same state, same month, same economy, two completely different worlds. The house on a lot inland is scarce. The unit on the 15th floor is not. Now let me get to the one that I think genuinely owes you an apology, because insurance is the reason a lot of you wrote to me saying you were giving up on Florida entirely. For years, the insurance story in this state was a one-way street. Carriers pulling out, premiums doubling, people in their 70s opening a renewal letter and finding a number they could not pay on a fixed income. I covered all of it, and it was accurate. That street changed direction this year. Citizens Property Insurance, the state-backed insurer of last resort, is putting through an average rate decrease of about 8.7% statewide for 2026. In Miami-Dade and Broward, the cuts run to roughly 14%. State Farm is cutting by around 10.1%. And this is not one or two companies making a gesture. As of January, Florida insurers had filed 83 separate requests for rate decreases and another 100 filings asking for no increase at all. I want to be careful here because this is exactly the kind of moment where a channel tells you what you want to hear. So let me be straight about the catch. Rates coming down is not the same thing as bills coming down. Florida regulators have said plainly that the reforms lowered rates while a lot of homeowners are still opening renewal notices with a higher annual premium than last year. The typical Florida homeowner is still paying somewhere between about $4,200 and $5,700 a year, depending on where the house sits. That is real money, and it is still painful. What changed is the direction of travel. For the first time in more than a decade, the line on that chart is pointing down instead of up, and the companies are competing for your business again instead of running from it. So put those three things next to each other. Migration collapsed. Condos are drowning. And single-family prices went up, sales climbed for 10 straight months, and insurance carriers started cutting. Those facts do not contradict each other. They are telling you one story, and I missed it for months. The people did not stop coming to Florida. They stopped coming to the parts of Florida that got too expensive, too crowded, and too exposed. In 2025, Florida still added about 201,000 residents through migration overall, roughly 551 people a day. And in this state, deaths now outnumber births, which means every single bit of Florida's growth is coming from people choosing to move here. They just chose different towns. The University of Florida looked at where those people landed, and the answer was not Miami and not the beach. Growth shifted to the mid-sized inland counties: Polk, Pasco, Marion, the middle of the map, the parts of Florida with pasture land and lakes and county seats with a courthouse on the square, the places that never got a luxury tower and never wanted one. That is where I have been pointing the camera in the wrong direction. So today I'm going to take you to 10 of those towns. For each one, I'm going to tell you the honest problem first, the thing that will actually bother you if you move there, and then I'm going to give you the number that makes people buy anyway. Number 1, Dade City in Pasco County. Let me give you the bad news first. Dade City is not the Florida on the postcard. You are about 45 minutes from Tampa on a good day, and there is no good day at rush hour on Interstate 75. The downtown is small, the hospital options are limited compared to the coast, and summers this far inland with no sea breeze are genuinely heavy. If your picture of retirement involves walking to the water in the morning, this is not your town, and I would rather tell you that now. Here is why people are buying anyway. The median sale price in Dade City as of June was $334,900. That is roughly $100,000 under the statewide single-family median of $432,000. You are inside one of the three counties the University of Florida identified as still gaining people while the big metros bleed them. And you are far enough inland on rolling ground with oak hammocks and orange groves that you are not buying into the coastal flood and condo problem that is dragging the headline numbers down. You get the growth without the exposure. That combination is the entire thesis of this video, and Dade City is the cleanest example of it in the state. Number 2, Williston in Levy County. The honest problem with Williston is that it is small and it is quiet in a way that some people find lonely. This is horse country west of Gainesville, a couple of stoplights, a feed store, and a lot of two-lane road. Your nearest serious shopping is a drive. Your nearest major airport is a longer one. If you need noise and options and a restaurant scene, Williston will feel like the surface of the moon by the second week. But the typical home value in Levy County sits at about $287,600. You are a reasonable drive from the medical centers in Gainesville, which matters more than almost anything else when you are past 70 and nobody wants to say it out loud. And the land around Williston is inland, high, dry, and agricultural, which is a very different insurance conversation than a house on a barrier island. Number 3, Live Oak in Suwannee County. The problem with Live Oak is distance. You are up in North Florida, closer to Georgia than to Orlando, and the economy here is agriculture and timber and the county government. Job growth is not the story. Some of the housing stock is older and will want work. And you are a long way from the kind of specialist care that people move to Florida specifically to be near. What people are buying is the arithmetic. The typical home value in Suwannee County is about $270,700. This is old Florida, live oaks with Spanish moss, springs on the Suwannee River you can swim in on a July afternoon. Property taxes and carrying costs up here are on a completely different scale than the coast. And the hurricane risk profile this far north and this far inland is not the same animal as a house in Fort Myers Beach. For a couple living on Social Security and a modest pension, Live Oak is one of the few places left where the monthly number actually works without pretending. Number 4, Avon Park in Highlands County. Avon Park has the lowest price of anywhere on this list, and there is a reason for that, so let me say it plainly. Highlands County is not wealthy. Median incomes here are low, the retail is thin, and parts of Avon Park look tired. If you drive through expecting Naples, you're going to turn the car around. Now the number. The typical home value in Highlands County is about $233,700. That is roughly half the statewide single-family median, and the geography here is the part nobody mentions. Avon Park sits on the Lake Wales Ridge, which is the spine of high ground running down the middle of the peninsula, some of the oldest and highest land in Florida. You're about as far from either coast as it is possible to get in this state. The lakes here are spring-fed and clean. When people ask me where in Florida you can still buy a house outright with the proceeds of a northern sale and have money left in the bank, this county is at the top of a very short list. If you are getting value out of this, do me a favor and hit subscribe, because the next section is the town where the numbers surprised me the most, and I do not want you to miss it. Number 5, Dunalin in Marion County. The honest problem with Dunalin is that it is a small river town with small town limits. There is not much of a job market inside the town itself. You will be driving to Ocala for anything substantial, and the tourism around the Rainbow River means summer weekends bring traffic and tubers and noise into what is otherwise a very quiet place. But this is the town on the list that made me sit up. In May, the median home sale price in Dunalin was $229,000. Marion County overall sits around $273,400. And Marion is one of the 3 counties the University of Florida named as still gaining residents, while Miami-Dade was losing 73,000 of them. Sit with that for a second. In the same state, in the same year, one county lost the population of a small city while this one kept growing. And you can buy into the growing one for about half of what the state median costs. The Rainbow River runs 68 degrees year-round, and the water is clear enough to read a license plate on the bottom. That is not a consolation prize. That is a better product at a lower price, and the market is starting to notice. Number 6, Inverness in Citrus County. Inverness has an age problem, and I mean that literally. Citrus County skews older than almost anywhere in Florida, which means if you are 60 and looking for a social circle, you will find one instantly. And if you are 45 with school-age kids, this town is going to feel like a waiting room. Wages are low, and growth is slow by design, and the locals prefer it that way. The typical home value in Citrus County is about $271,800. What you get for that is a town wrapped around a chain of lakes, the Withlacoochee State Trail running right through the middle of it for 46 miles of paved rail trail, and a courthouse square that actually still functions as a downtown. You are inland on the western side, but not on the open Gulf, and the whole county is built around exactly the kind of buyer this state has spent 3 years pricing out. Number 7, Brooksville in Hernando County. Brooksville is a commuter town whether it admits it or not. A lot of people here drive to Tampa, and that drive is not pleasant. The town has struggled with its downtown for years, and some of the surrounding development is the cheap stucco sprawl that gives Florida a bad name. The typical home value in Hernando County is about $309,900, and Brooksville itself sits on some of the highest and prettiest ground in West Central Florida, rolling hills that genuinely surprise people who thought this entire state was a parking lot at sea level. You are close enough to Tampa for the airport and the hospitals, and far enough from the coast that you are not in the conversation about storm surge. That gap between access and exposure is the whole game right now. Number 8, Bartow in Polk County, Bartow is a working town. It is the county seat. It is surrounded by phosphate mining and citrus and heavy industry. And if you are looking for charm on every street, you will not find it evenly distributed. Summer here is brutal, dead center of the peninsula with no breeze from anywhere. And Polk County is the single clearest proof of everything I have said today. The typical home value is about $298,600. Polk is on the University of Florida's short list of counties still pulling people in while the coastal metros lose them. It sits between Tampa and Orlando, which means 2 international airports, 2 major hospital systems, and a job market you can actually reach in either direction. Bartow has a genuinely handsome historic district with brick streets and old Florida houses that would cost 4 times as much if you picked them up and set them down in Winter Park. People are not moving to Polk County by accident. They ran the same numbers I just ran. Number 9, Crestview in Okaloosa County. Crestview's problem is that it is not really Florida in the way most of you picture it. This is the Panhandle, up near the Alabama line, and the culture, the accent, and the winters are closer to South Georgia than to Sarasota. The town is heavily tied to the military at Eglin Air Force Base, and that shapes everything from the housing market to the traffic pattern. The typical home value in Okaloosa County is about $353,600, which is still under the statewide single-family median. What you are buying is a defense economy that does not care what the housing market is doing, some of the highest ground in the entire state, and the emerald water of the Gulf beaches about 40 minutes south without paying to live on top of them. Crestview is what happens when you buy access to the coast instead of buying the coast. Number 10. Mount Dora in Lake County. I will give you the bad news first, and with Mount Dora, the bad news is the price. This is the most expensive town on my list. Lake County's typical home value is about $363,800, and inside Mount Dora itself, you will pay a premium on top of that because everybody already knows about this place. The downtown is charming enough that it fills with visitors every weekend, and the locals grumble about parking. This is not an undiscovered secret, and I am not going to pretend it is. But it is still under the state median. It is 40 minutes from Orlando. It sits on high ground above Lake Dora with a genuine 19th century Main Street, and it is the one town on this list where I think the price is going up rather than down over the next 5 years. I put it last on purpose. If everything else on this list is about buying value, Mount Dora is about buying the thing you actually wanted and finding out it costs less than the crowded coastal version of the same idea. Now let me give you the verdict because I promised you one and I am not going to hedge it. Is Florida finished? No. But the answer comes with a condition attached, and the condition is not optional. Florida is finished as a place where you buy anything, anywhere, and it works out. That era ended and it is not coming back. If you buy a coastal condo in an aging tower right now, you are buying into 8.1 months of inventory, special assessments and structural inspections, and you may spend years trying to get back out. If you were counting on selling into a frenzy of northerners with cash, that frenzy is gone. 22,500 people net is not a frenzy. But if you buy a single-family house, inland, in a county that is still gaining people, you are buying into a market where prices rose 4.9% last year, where sales have grown for 10 months straight, and where the insurance carriers are competing for you again for the first time in a decade. That is not a collapsing market. That is a market that got specific. And there is one more thing coming that almost nobody watching this has priced in. On the ballot this November, Florida voters will decide on a constitutional amendment that would create a new homestead exemption of up to $150,000 starting January 1st of 2027, rising to $250,000 in 2028, applied to everything except school levies, with a separate $25,000 exemption for the school portion. It needs 60% of the vote to pass. Nothing has changed yet, no bill has gone down, and I want you to hear me on that because plenty of people are already spending money they do not have. But if it passes, the 10 towns I just named are the places where that exemption swallows the largest share of the value of your house. If you want the full breakdown of which Florida towns are worth buying into right now and which ones I would avoid completely, I put all of it into the Florida buy and avoid list for 2026. 40 towns, 20 to buy, and 20 to walk away from, with the actual numbers behind each one. The link is in the description. Now, I want to hear from you, and I want the honest version. If you live in one of these 10 towns, tell me in the comments whether I got it right or whether I am selling a postcard, because you are standing in it and I am reading a spreadsheet. And if you left Florida in the last 2 years, tell me where you went and whether you would come back, because that is the question I get more than any other, and I would rather have your answer than a forecast. If this changed how you see the map, watch the one on the Florida towns quietly hitting brand new record highs, because it is the same story told from the other end, and the two of them back to back will show you exactly where this state is going next. Subscribe to FloridaPulse, because I go through these numbers town by town every single month, and I will correct myself in public whenever the data says I should. We will see you in the next one.